Good morning, everybody. Coming to you live from the Buttonwood Park Zoo. We are currently in our Wildlife Education Center classroom. Just hanging on for a couple of seconds for some folks to jump on. We are inside today. Good morning, Patty. And just a reminder to folks, there is a donate button. During our virtual keeper chat, your donations go to the Buttonwood Park Zoological Society and help underwrite our programs and special events and help us to keep these virtual chats going. Hi, Hannah and Mackenzie. Nice to see you back on with us again. Howdy, Chris. All right, it looks like we have a number of people that are with us. So today, like I said, we are inside our Wildlife Education Center. This is actually our Science on a Sphere that you're seeing with the lights on for folks that have joined us in the past. And today we're going to have a special guest with us. It is our zoo director, Keith Lovett, and he's going to be talking about some of our newest additions here at the zoo. And you can go.
Good morning, everyone. As Sharon said, my name is Keith Lovett. I am the director here at the Buttonwood Park Zoo. And as some of you might have seen in the local press, on New Bedford Guide and WFDSM and the Standard Times, we had some new birds here at the Buttonwood Park Zoo. We had actually two species of endangered birds that were raised. One of them is the Scaly-sided merganser, which is a type of duck that's found through Russia and China and North Korea. And we also have what are called Cabot's tragedies, which is a species of Asian pheasants. Both of these species are not doing great in the wild. The Scaly-sided merganser is actually one of the more endangered duck species in the world, and the pheasants are a vulnerable species. The pheasants are living with their mom, so we're not going to be showing you them today. But we do have with us today some Scaly-sided mergansers, also known as Chinese mergansers, that we are actually raising here at the Buttonwood Park Zoo. Jess Martino, who's behind me, who is going to be with the Ducklings, she is actually raising these guys. She's acting as their mom. Unfortunately, the hen, the female merganser, she basically stopped taking care of the eggs, stopped incubating the eggs, so we needed to take these eggs and put them in an incubator, and we have hatched them out ourselves, and we are working as a surrogate mom to raise this endangered species. You want to show everybody these beautiful ducklings?
So I'm going to come a little bit closer and pan in. And if people have questions as we go along, I can periodically pose those questions to Director Lovett. Hi, Diana. And yes, Norma, we hope that people do continue to donate because it does take a lot to run a top-notch zoo.
So there's only about 15 zoos in the country that have these guys right now. As I said, they are Scaly-sided mergansers. This is a diving duck. This is a species that lives on rivers through Far East Asia. They're mostly fish eaters. Right now they're eating a special pellet that's designed for new ducklings that has a very high protein level. And as you can see that on their chest, they're really extended right now. They're filling up. They have basically their crop on their front of them. As they're eating all that food, that's getting big and fat on them. So they're getting a little bit satiated right now or filled up right now. But you can see these big little piglets are going to town. And Jess has done a great job of raising these guys so far.
So Michelle is asking, what do they eat?
So in the wild, they're going to eat a lot of different types of fish species. They'll also eat a lot of crustaceans, shrimp, and other aquatic invertebrates. But they have mainly a fish diet in the wild. Here at the zoo, we have a commercial pellet that we are using that they're eating right now. But we also supplement them with some insects and some fish product as well. You guys ever corralled a bunch of ducklings before?
So Kaiden, age 9, is asking, how long do these guys live?
So ducks typically, the smaller the duck, usually the less long, their lifespan is a little bit shorter. These guys are going to live for about 10 to 12 years. They may get up to 13 or 14, but usually they're going to live for about 10 to 12 years.
Hi, Mason. Hi, Maddox. So that question was from Kaiden, age 9. What are the colored bands on their legs right now?
That's a very good question. So all the birds at the zoo, particularly ducks and geese and swans, we don't have swans right now, but waterfowl in general, you are going to put some type of leg band on, and that's for identification purposes. Right now, because these guys are growing so rapidly, we are not putting a permanent band on them. Their permanent band that we will eventually put on their leg, it's too big for them right now, so we're using zip ties on their legs right now. Now, the reason they're all different colors is because part of our job of raising them and being surrogates for them is we got to make sure they gain the proper amount of weight, and we have weight charts that we keep, and it's based on identification of the individual birds. So we can say, hey, blue bird with the blue band, you gain 6 grams overnight. Red band, you only gain 2 grams. We got to watch you a little bit, but it's how we're identifying the birds, and it's part of how we are raising the birds right now.
All right, a couple of good questions coming in. Carrie is asking, why are they endangered?
So there's a lot of different reasons. The biggest reasons these guys endangered, one, and this is true of a lot of wetland species, has to do, they need very good water quality. And as there's pollution through China and through Russia and some of the areas, that has caused a problem. The other thing is these guys are cavity nesters, and they're typically going to nest in trees. And the trees need to be along a river in their case. And what ends up happening is through logging operations, people will cut down the trees that are closest to the river, send the trees down the river, and that's causing a lack of nesting habitats for them. Some of the work the Buttonwood Park Zoo does is try to save the species in the wild. We've put artificial nest box along the rivers in China and in Russia to help save these guys, because the natural nest box, the tree cavities, are no longer there anymore. So that is the biggest reason they are endangered in the wild.
All right, so Noah, age 3, has a great question. Why do they have such a long beak?
It has to do with their diet. Whenever you see a duck with a different shape of a bill, it has to do with their diet. If it's a flat bill with ridges on the end, they're usually going to be sifters. These guys have long, narrow bills. That's because they're fish eaters. The bill actually helps them not only catch fish very easily, they can grab it, it also helps them to swallow it as well. So the shape of the bill is indicative of the type of food they eat. In this case, they're fish eaters, and you see this in a lot of fishes. If you think of a heron, if you think of a stork, they all have these elongated bills. That's because they are fish eaters.
And Logan, age 8, wants to know what are their predators?
So there's a couple different predators. They are susceptible mostly to aerial predators, and that is birds of prey. So different types of hawks and owls and possibly eagles are going to be the ones that are going to go after them most. Could an otter go after them? Probably. Some other carnivorous, semi-aquatic mammals. But typically their biggest problem is going to be aerial predators. Then of course it's also man as well, who have been known to poach and shoot these guys as well.
Chris is asking, do the males and females look the same?
We're going to see if Jess, I don't know if you can bring up your phone at some point, or I can look for it. They are significantly different. I've done a couple duck talks already during the zoo being closed, and typically the male is going to be a very flashy, pretty bird species, and the females have a tendency to be a little bit drab. That's because the male's job is to attract the females, basically show off like a peacock to attract them, and the female's job is basically to lay the eggs and take care of the young. If you're going to be laying an egg, you're going to be vulnerable to a predator, so you want to be drab and really blend in with the environment. So typically, female birds who nest are going to be brown and drab, and the more colorful birds are usually going to be males.
So Hannah, age 8, wants to know, do these guys have specific names? Do they go by the band colors?
So it depends. Right now they're going by band colors. When you're raising so many in 5, I'm not sure we're going to come up with 5 names. And we have another 9 Scaly-sided mergansers on zoo ground. So typically we're not going to come up with 14 names for all these ducks. If it was an individual goose or a swan they were raising, or maybe a crane, we're typically going to name it when it's 1 or 2 animals. But when it's a big group of animals, in this case, a clutch of ducklings, typically we're not going to name them. We're going to go by their color of their bands.
So both Tegan and Hannah, or I'm sorry, Emily, want to know, do they know how to swim right away when they're born, or do they have to be taught?
It is a combination. Typically, from a swimming standpoint, they know how to do that right away. If you watch mallards that are out in our area, sometimes wood ducks, I know we have some wild wood ducks that are being raised up on property right now. they typically know how to swim right away. What they often need to be taught to do is how to eat. They know how to eat, they know how to swallow, but sometimes they have to be encouraged. One of the most challenging things when you're a surrogate and you're trying to raise animals like this or birds like this is to get them the first time to eat. You have to show them, you need to move around. We'll use little insects because it attracts their attention. Some of it is innate, some of it they're born with, but some of it has to be taught. So swimming, for the most part, they know how to do. The learning to eat is something that we have to encourage them to do.
Is this a special food that they're eating right now?
This is a special diet that is specifically made for growing ducklings. It all has to do with the protein level. If you give too much protein, you can have some development problems with the wings. But this particular diet is formulated for ducklings that are raising, and as you can see, they're doing very well on it.
Kaiden wants to know, do you have a favorite duck, a favorite type of duck?
Whew.
I can answer that one. You love all ducks.
Yeah.
Is there a favorite?
I like all ducks. There are some different types of whistling ducks. We don't have whistling ducks. In general, I would say that whistling ducks are my favorite type of ducks. This is a picture. I don't know if you can pick that up, Shara. Let's see if I can get this.
Okay.
Hold on a second.
We'll keep these guys corralled while you're looking that up.
This is a picture. Can you show that?
Yep.
Of a male and female. The one closest to Shara, that is the male. The one in the back is the female. You can see the male has the bright green colored head. He's a little bit more showy than the female. The female's a little more drab with the brown head. But that is what the male and female, and that's what these guys will look like when they get older.
How long does it take for them to look like that? I'm just going to show these guys.
Mergansers usually don't show their true colors. They'll start seeing some of the different colors, but usually you're not going to see the true colors until about 2 years of age, the second breeding season. So when they get about 2 is when you see a lot of their colors.
And how long does it take for them? So these guys they don't really look like feathers. So what are they covered with now?
It's mostly down. The feathers are slowly coming in, but what you're seeing a lot of is down feathers. So when you think of, they used to make a lot of jackets and pillows out of down feathers. This is very fluffy. And to answer the next question that inevitably will be asked, yes, they are that soft. They are incredibly soft. Now, you'll notice that the one merganser is starting to fall asleep. They just filled their bellies and they're getting sleepy now, and that's what's going on. So basically, just fed all these guys, and now they can barely keep their eyes open as they're slowly falling asleep.
And they look like they've all sort of clumped together. Oh, this little guy's still moving. I'm just scrolling back through questions to make sure we haven't missed any. The Waterfowl Taxon Advisory Group is saying congratulations to Keith and the team. How common is it for the scaly-sided mergansers to be born? How many zoos?
Right now, there are 15 zoos in the country that are working with scaly-sided mergansers. This is a species that was challenging, I would say, for a long period of time to have success from a breeding standpoint. I think a lot of zoos are starting to figure out this species, and we're seeing a lot of success. There seems to be some fluctuation from year to year, how much success we're seeing. Last year was not a particularly good year. This year, early indications are seeing that we are having some success in this country with this species. This is the second year in a row that the Buttonwood Park Zoo has raised this species. This is an endangered species. This is what is called the species, this is part of the species survival plan. And it is a collaborative effort between zoos across the country, accredited zoos across the country, that they are all working together to help save this species. So there are 15 zoos right now working together to help raise and increase the numbers of these species.
These guys are all taking a nap. How often do we feed them?
So they have access to food basically all day long. We will do some additional supplemental feeding with some insects and what have you, 4, 5, 6 times a day, but they have access to food all day long.
Here's a great question from Kaiden. Would they eat bread?
So there's a lot of controversy. People feed bread, particularly, say, here in New Bedford, to geese and ducks, and in our case, mute swans out around the zoo in the neighborhoods. It's not a good nutritional source. It's just basically calories that has no real nutritional benefit. And it actually can cause bigger problems that by feeding bread, you can actually give them growth rates that can cause deformities, particularly in a juvenile or a subadult duck. So in general, you want to refrain from giving bread to ducklings or ducks that you see out there. Different types of lettuces are a better choice if you're going to a park and you want to feed ducks.
Okay. So these guys look like they're not going to be doing a whole lot of moving around.
The eggs?
Yeah. I see that you brought a bunch of other stuff.
So Jess has done a great job of collecting some of the eggs that we have here at the zoo. Sometimes with eggs there is a lack of fertility. So sometimes that the eggs, do not develop into babies. They're basically called infertile eggs, and it just basically means the male and the female didn't do a great job of fertilizing an egg. Jess has blown out some of these eggs, and we have a variety of eggs here. Everything from the largest egg here is a sandhill crane, but we have Canada geese and all kinds of different duck species. The smallest probably is our sun conure egg, which is a small species of parrot over here. But we collect these eggs so we can show people what the various types of eggs. The most colorful egg is our guerra cuckoo over here. You can see that right here. It looks like it was painted, but nope, that's the color of the eggs that comes from our cuckoos. They're a species that we have in our rainforest rivers and reefs exhibits here at the zoo.
So these are all from birds that we have here at the zoo.
Yes, they're all species those are all eggs that were laid here at the zoo. This is a Cabot's tragopan that we were talking about earlier. We haven't shown. This is actually a vulnerable species that we have here at the zoo, but that's one of the eggs from that species as well.
So back to the scaly-sided mergs. Emily wanted to know if the points on their feet are claws.
Yeah, so they do have claws at the very end of their feet. Part of that is they are going to be spending times up in trees and cavities, and that actually allows them to climb and perch a little bit better. They have a longer claw than most duck species, and that's because of where they nest and the type of habitat they're in. But those are definitely claws on their webbed feet at the end.
All right, so you had talked about the fact that these little guys came from eggs that were incubated. Mm-hmm. And can you talk a little bit about that, about what we do?
Yeah, so it depends on the species. In this particular case, wherever possible, we want the parents, or usually the mother, to raise the babies. Sometimes, for a variety of reasons, that doesn't happen. Sometimes it is that you have poor parental skills. The hen either won't incubate the eggs, or she's not doing a very good job. In this particular case, we had what is called a group of eggs. It's called a clutch. We had a clutch of eggs, and I believe there were 7 or 8 originally, and the eggs slowly started to disappear. So something was happening. Either somebody was going in and pushing the eggs out, or the mom was not taking great care. Because this is endangered species, it was very important that we hatch these species, and we know that ducklings do very well if they are surrogated by humans. We decided to pull the eggs at about 2 weeks of age to incubate them the rest of the way, because we didn't want to lose any more eggs. So we are raising them. We have actually 2 other hens of this species who have eggs out there right now. We hope that they will raise them, but right now we are going to be raising these guys.
How long would they normally stay with their moms?
Usually they're going to stay for a few months. In a captive situation, it's going to be a little bit longer. But once they get full flighted, they're going to move on and fly away and go off on their own lives. But they don't spend for years or anything like that with their mother. It's just for a few months. Usually dad is not involved. It's usually them hanging out with mom. Dad is part of the breeding, but he doesn't have much of the raising role with these guys.
Okay, here's a great question and probably a great segue. Sage, age 6, wants to know, how do you know the eggs are fertile?
That's a very good question, and it's an absolutely fantastic segue. And Duck Wrangler Jess is going to turn on
all right, so just so you guys are prepared, before you shut that off, I'm just going to show you a picture of this, because I believe that this is the piece of equipment that we use when we're looking at eggs.
That's an egg handler. Honestly, back in the day, you spent a lot of money on egg handlers. With the new cell phones, you can do it just as easy with a cell phone, but because I guess I got a few years on me, we still have handlers here at the zoo.
And what does that do?
It's a very powerful focus light. It lets us look inside most eggs. I'm going to turn the lights off, Cheryl. Let everybody know we're going to...
Yep, so the lights are going to come off, so we are going to go dark, but I'm going to pan in close so you can see that light, that brightly shining light right there. that was coming out of the front of the candler.
So at the various stages of development, you can actually see different eggs are at different stages. What species is this, Jess?
This is a hooded merganser.
This is a hooded merganser. Now, this is one of two things. If you look inside this egg, there's not a lot of development. So that means one or two things. A, this is either infertile egg, meaning that the mom and dad didn't do a great job and these eggs are not going to develop into chicks. Or B, it is an egg that hasn't been incubated yet. Based on what I know about our hooded mergansers, my assumption is this is an egg that has not started the incubation process. Until the hen starts sitting on the eggs on a regular basis, basically about 23 hours a day, you're not going to start seeing development of the eggs. Since the hen has not started incubating, that is not an egg that's going to develop. Who is this, Jess?
This is an Argentine ruddy duck.
So this is an Argentine ruddy duck, also known as an ARD. This is a diving duck species, a stiff-tailed species that's found through southern South America. If you're looking at that, you can actually see that this is a developing egg. This is probably a 10, 12 days in, maybe a little bit more, 2 weeks in, and you can see what it is. Those are the blood vessels that are going through. So basically, and it keeps turning, but you can actually see where the bulk of can you turn it there?
Yep.
This is where the embryo has developing, the blood supply that's going around it. This is an egg that is basically halfway through its incubation, maybe a little bit less. But this is how we can tell that it is an fertile egg.
All right, so the first one looked really clear when you put it up to the candle.
That has not started the process yet. That is midway. And this is now a Maine goose, correct?
Yep.
This is a Maine goose, is an Australian species. You can see that you can barely see through the egg. This is a egg that's probably 3 to 4 days from hatching. We're only a few days away from hatching this guy. Right now it's developing all up in here. You can see that there's a baby inside. The next step for this is they're actually going to, on the end of their bill, when they're young, they have what is called an egg tooth. Between that light area here and that dark area, there's a membrane. The first step is they're going to use that egg tooth and break into that membrane, into that airspace. And that is called internal pippin. After that happens, they're going to use that egg tooth, which is just a little sharp little edge to the beak, and they're actually going to chip away at the shell to allow themselves to hatch. But this is an egg that's about 4 to 5 days from hatching.
So you can actually see it looks like little blood vessels. Mm-hmm. And the dark part is where the chick is,
yep.
Or the duckling.
So when we have different nests in the ground, there are a lot of eggs that we incubate ourselves for a variety of reasons. Sometimes the hen doesn't take care of them. Sometimes it's an incredibly endangered species that we need to intervene to make sure they hatch. But we also let the hens, the ducks, and the geese raise a lot of birds on their own as well, or ducklings on their own. So what we will do is and borrow an egg from a nest to check on the development of the egg, and by doing this candler we can see, yep, they have fertile eggs, and we expect them to have ducklings or goslings or cygnets, which is a baby swan, in a certain amount of time. So that's part of the science that we apply to what we do.
How many eggs do you typically see in the nest? Does it vary from species to species of duck?
When you're talking about ducks, as a general rule, this is not exact, but as a general rule, the smaller the duck, usually the larger clutch size or more eggs they're going to have. As you start getting towards the geese, the medium-sized geese, you may have 5 or 6 eggs. As you get some of the larger geese, you may have 4 or 5 eggs. And as we start getting into the bigger swans and what have you, usually they're only going to get about 3 or 4 eggs. These guys, the Scaly-sided mergansers, they're going to have clutches, probably around 8 to 10 eggs. They're middle of the range. There are some wood ducks and mallards that have huge clutches or can have huge clutches. So there's a wood duck that just hatched 10 ducklings out on zoo grounds yesterday.
Okay, so I don't know if anybody one of the eggs that we were turning, but I saw it in the light. It looked like there was a date or there was writing on the egg.
So you do not harm the eggs. We use a pencil. We use a dull tip pencil, and we actually mark the eggs because we are dealing with so many eggs here at the zoo, particularly during the spring, our breeding season, that we identify the eggs, the date, and what species they are. So we put some markings on the eggs so we can track them. There's a lot of different things you can do to tell development if an egg is... we're going to take that one off now so it doesn't get too hot.
Yeah.
You're getting that duck a little roasty in there. There's different methods you can use, different science you can use to make sure they are doing okay. You can weigh the eggs to make sure there's an appropriate amount of
Right.
weight loss during the development. But there's a lot of science that goes into it.
All right, so this is the time of year when you see a lot of ducklings outside, and I know that I get a lot of calls from people about orphaned or lost ducklings. What should people be doing if they are seeing ducklings alone outside?
Typically, if there is a duckling alone, the first thing to do is you need to try to find where the mom is. It is not uncommon. Now, I don't mean to be sad here, but there's a reason the ducks have so many eggs hatch and so many ducklings. If you go and look at a mallard, they may be, one day you look out there, if you're lucky enough to live on a pond or visit a pond, hey, there's 12 mallard ducklings, that's amazing. And you come back the next day and there's 10, and the next day there's 8. There is a large amount of predation that happens to ducklings, and there's a high mortality rate with ducklings. Oftentimes the mom will get separated from the ducklings, and unfortunately those ducklings will not survive. So if you find a duckling, the first thing you want to do is make sure mom's around. They're usually going to be calling, chirping up a storm, and mom's going to come and find them. If mom is nowhere around, call the zoo, call animal care and control of your various towns, and typically they can be raised and then released back to the wild.
Okay, along those same lines, what should folks do if they find a duck nest with no mom?
Leave it alone. So a lot of people think that the duck has to stay on the nest for a long period of time, and they will spend majority of the day on the nest, but they have to go out and eat on their own as well. So periodically a female duck is going to leave the nest. She's going to go out and find food for herself. Sometimes they get startled off the nest and they're going to leave. Sometimes they will leave permanently, but you never know. And typically if you see a nest, you're better off just stepping back, give them the space, and letting the hen, in this case the female duck, come back on her own.
And what should you do if you find a nest with eggs, but then there are some eggs that are out of the nest?
More than likely that is a nest that has been either they have already hatched out, and some of the eggs left in the nest are not viable, they're not good, and they're not going to hatch, or it's a nest that's been predated. In most cases, when you find an abandoned nest, either the eggs that are left are no good, or unfortunately the babies inside have perished because they haven't been incubated by the mother.
So Kaiden is asking if they're friendly, and then Tegan is asking, do they always follow each other?
So these are imprinted ducks. So because they have this big, huge duck raising them, they're huge relative to a duck. No insult there.
I take it as a compliment.
So their mom is Jess at this point. So these guys are incredibly imprinted and very friendly. Typically in the wild, they're not going to be this friendly.
So I think Julia, age 6, joined us a little late. Can you tell them one more time what kind of ducks these
are? Called Scaly-sided mergansers. Mergansers is a type of diving duck. They're also known as Chinese mergansers. This is a fish-eating diving duck species that is found through the rivers of sections of China, Russia, and North Korea.
Trying to get behind them here so they can keep going. I'm just scrolling through to make sure that we have not missed any questions. Lots of people thanking us, and people are learning all sorts of new things they never knew.
Buttonwood Park Zoo, we are only a 7-acre zoo, but we do have a lot of water on site with the Buttonwood Brook and a lot of different things. So we are well suited to be in an institution that has a lot of waterfowl species. I will say that is some of my bias because I'm very much into waterfowl, ducks, geese, and swans and screamers. But we are well suited at the zoo. So as a result, we have about 35 species of ducks, geese here at the zoo, and we have a lot of different species that we are raising on an annual basis. It's one of the expertise of the Buttonwood Park Zoo at this time.
All right, I think that we have answered just about everybody's question. There's a lot of cuteness overload going on right now. A lot of thank yous, and we thank you for joining us for these virtual keeper chats. It's a great way for us to stay connected. While we don't have our visitors coming in on site, we do miss you. Once again, there is that donate button, and we so appreciate your donations. Here's another quick question from Hannah. Do we have to teach them to fly?
No, they will learn to fly on their own. This is something, unfortunately, as good as Jess is at raising them, she's an absolutely horrible flyer. So Jess, you know, she looks absolutely ridiculous too when she's flapping her wings or flapping around trying to simulate what it means to fly. Flying is something that they will do very naturally, so that is not something we will have to train them here at the zoo.
All right. I think that takes care of all the questions. Once again, I want to thank everybody for joining us. If you missed the first portion of this Keeper Chat, you can find it on our Facebook page, the Buttonwood Park Zoo. And we look forward to seeing you again at 11.
I will follow our Facebook page because we will give periodic update not only on these ducklings, on the many species of ducklings that we will be raising at the zoo this summer.
All right. A huge thank you to Jess and to our director, Keith Lovett. One more quick shot of these little guys. And we hope you enjoy the rest of your day.